going, guys? This is Toxic Story, and today we have my review of Astral Chain. Astral Chain is the newest game by Platinum Games. It is a action game in the likes of a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry. Now, this video is intended to be a two-part video. The first is going to be the review that you're listening to now. The second part is going to be an in-depth analysis of the game. We're going to talk about the entire game in depth. It will be very spoiler heavy. Hopefully that will be out in the next few days. That one I do hope that you will watch after you play the game, or if you don't care about spoilers, then feel free to go ahead, but it will spoil the entire game. But let's move on with the actual review. First up is the visuals. The visuals of this game are amazing. The art style is great. I love that cell shaded look. I just think that it's great. I mean, I loved it in Breath of the Wild. I loved it in many other games. I actually personally prefer it better than the realism. But, you know, that isn't for everybody. There are a few issues with the resolution and some of the visual fidelity. But the art style more than makes up for it. Unless you're one of those people who nitpick that kind of stuff and you can tell, you're not going to notice. During the game, I didn't notice any issues visually. There were a few little things that bothered me, like during cutscenes and stuff. It was just some wonky textures. But overall, the game looks amazing. And I absolutely love this world. I loved spending time in it. I loved looking at it. All the set pieces were great. Even some of the more basic ones were still really nice. So with that done, let's go on to the sound direction. The sound direction for this game overall was amazing. I enjoyed the music. The three genres that they chose were a really nice choice, and well, it fit the story they were trying to tell. It fit the setting that they built in this cyberpunk world. It was great. Now, the sound effects for the game were on point. They were great. The vehicles in the game sounded great. The combat sounded great. The enemies sounded great. Voice acting was great. The little secondary and side characters were done really well. You're going to hear a lot of the same stuff over and over, and it all still sounds great. It never gets on your nerves. It never gets too repetitive and too overdone, which is great. That's what you're looking for in a game. You know, you don't want it to be, oh, why are they playing this song for the 100th time, or why is the same effect playing over and over? It never gets to be like that, which is something that I greatly appreciate. Now, with that being said, something that I didn't like with the voice acting was, at the beginning, you get to pick between the two twins, a male and a female. Now, whichever twin you don't pick is voice acted through the story, where the twin that you do pick is a silent protagonist. If they've already done the voice work and they have voice actors for both, why not just go ahead and voice the entire game? It would have added to the story. You know, most of the time a silent protagonist doesn't bother me, but in this case, if you already have it, why not use it? It can't take away from the game, so I don't understand the reason, but even with that being said, the game was still really nice. I still really enjoyed it. I really got into the story. The actors were great. They really convinced me of their characters. There is a character that you'll meet later on in the story who I'm not going to talk about because I don't want to spoil anything, but that was one of the finest voice actings in the entire game, and I just loved it. The way these people can bring the characters to life are amazing, and I super appreciated the work that they did. Now, with the voice and sound out of the way, let's actually move on to the exploration of this world. Now, this is not an open world by any means, but the areas and stuff you go to are well crafted. They are open in a sense. They do have some spots where you can explore, that there's a lot of secrets in the world to find, which is really nice, which I personally really appreciate, because this isn't a super long game, and with there being more to go back and look at and explore, it just adds to the runtime, which is always really nice. You know, the more time you can get out of a game that you spent $60 on is always really good. Now let's talk about something new that Platinum Games tried with Astral Chain, and that is the investigations, which are really cool. I do really enjoy them. They are very simplistic, but on their own, they would not be really great. They wouldn't be really good. They would be very bland and very basic. But the way they're used to break up the combat and the story are great. They are a really nice change of pace, and they are in-depth enough to not get tedious and boring, but add a new change to the game's pacing. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the combat, because it's a Platinum game. That is the big staple of their studio, is the combat. They always do great combat, and nothing's changed here. You know, if you're used to Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, which is very similar, you are going to be thrown back a little bit because this does run at 30 frames instead of the normal 60 that we're used to, but it does set itself apart in a big way. Because of the legions that you command, it's a whole new ball game, and I really enjoyed the legions. They are a great addition. They are a lot of fun, and they add a depth to combat so that it's not just hacking and slashing. Now, the game for the first hour or two does start out being very hack and slash, very, I don't want to say tedious, but I will say very bland. Now, once the game starts opening up and showing you all that it has to offer with the legions, the combos you can do, all of that, it opens up beautifully, and the combat was fun and engaging into the final boss fight. I still was enjoying myself, and I'm probably going to go back and play it some more just because I enjoyed what was there. Now, let's move on to talking about the story, because this story was engaging. It was great. I really loved the characters. I really loved the world. I really loved everything that they built in this presentation. And I think that is the most important thing. If you're going to do a story-driven game, then your world needs to be great, your lore needs to be great, and the story that you tell within it has to be on point. It has to do the setting and the world that you create justice. And this game does it. You know, there are a few tropes that you're going to see. There are going to be some plot points that you'll be able to predict. That happens. You know, is it the most original thing? Absolutely not. But does it tell a great story that carries you through your whole playthrough? Yes. Now, is it a super long story? No, not by any means. It'd take you 10 to 15 hours to complete this, which, you know, is kind of short. You know, we're used to 40-hour experiences for games like this. But with that being said, the story was condensed in a way so that it flowed well, so that there wasn't a lot of filler, so that it just kept on that pace, which was great, and I really appreciate it. Now, I spent about 20 hours or so in the game completing the story. The reason it took me so long is I did a good portion of the side quest. Not all of them are even close by any means, but I did a good portion. So, side content and stuff has a lot more there to add to the game, and I'm probably going to go back and try to complete some more just because I enjoyed the game. The story, like I said, it was great. It was really engaging. We'll go over that more in the in-depth analysis where we're actually going to go over spoilers and stuff. But let's actually move on to my conclusion of Astral Chain. So, as I said, combat is great. There are a few things here and there with the visuals, with the combat starting out a little basic. There was an issue or two I had where the dodging didn't work right, but I think that was more operator error than anything. But overall, if you are a fan of the Japanese style games, if you're a fan of the anime aesthetic, if you're a fan of cyberpunk games, if you're a fan of games that have that detective element into it, then absolutely check out Astral Chain. It was a great 20-hour ride, and I enjoyed it. So that concludes my review of Astral Chain. If you liked it, please subscribe, leave a like, comment with the channel though, just as an update since this is my first video. We are going to hopefully do a good bit more reviews like this, and we are also going to try to do a Let's Play series for Borderlands 3. And I'm going to try to start a weekly podcast where I'm going to have a few guests on talking about games, things that are going on in the industry, comparing games to all just kind of stuff. I have a few guys who are really big into things other than just video games, and they have a really cool perspective that they want to talk about on how games translate to other medium. So hopefully if you like the video, you'll stick around to see the other content. Alright, have a nice day, guys.